22nd August is often referred to as Madras Day and marks the day the city was founded in 1639. Odyssey wishes all his guests a very happy Madras Day and a happy Vinayaka Chaturthi. Odyssey is happy to host the launch of the title A Difficult Choice by Mr. RV Rajan, followed by AuthorSpeak, an Odyssey initiative to celebrate 3 authors from Chennai who will speak about themselves, their book, and of course Chennai. He is an advertising veteran and a rural communication specialist. He got hooked to writing post-retirement. Now an author, columnist, and blogger, his articles have been published by leading Chennai-based English dailies and periodicals. Based in Chennai, he is also actively involved in encouraging talented women in creative arts through the Prabha Rajan Talent Foundation, a trust he founded in memory of his late wife. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Namma Chennai author, Mr. RV Rajan. He is the best-selling author of Fraudster, Insider, and Saboteur. He was head of KPMG's consulting practice and the co-head of their risk advisory services. He was also a partner at A.T. Kearney and Arthur Andersen. Over a career spanning 3 decades and 4 continents, he has advised several banks, financial institutions, regulators, stock exchanges, and corporates on matters of strategy, operations, and risk management. He currently teaches business strategy at IIM Trichy, mentors young entrepreneurs, and advises select clients. He lives in Chennai and titled Saboteur was his 3rd novel in his corporate thriller series that explores white-collar crime in India. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Namma Chennai author Mr. RV Raman. He is a child of the Dravidian movement and has long been a commentator on Dravidian politics. Raised and educated in Chennai, he completed his LLM from University of Georgia and PhD in International Relations from the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy, Tufts University. He has served in various capacities with the United Nations in 2 continents for nearly a quarter of a century. He presently heads the Basra office of the UN Assistance Mission for Iraq. His titles Anna and MGR alike are Odyssey bestsellers. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Namma Chennai author Mr. R. Kannan. I would request Mr. RV Raman to unveil the book A Difficult Choice by Mr. RV Rajan and hand over the first copy to Mr. Kannan. A big hand.
Not a difficult choice. Holding.
Time for our Chennai's AuthorSpeak. Request Mr. RV Raman to take the session forward with Mr. R. Kannan and Mr. RV Rajan and share their experiences of writing their books and how Madras Chennai played a major role. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this edition of AuthorSpeak. In these 2 gentlemen we have very different authors, as you will probably see. Right? There is very little in common between the 3 of us in terms of the kind of writing we do, and we'll explore that as we go along. But starting first, let me invite Mr. Rajan to speak about his books and his writing. Mr. Rajan.
Friends, at the outset I would like to thank Ashwin and the Odyssey team for giving me this opportunity to be part of the Madras Week celebrations of your store and releasing my 6th book, A Difficult Choice, collection of my short stories. I'm also happy to inform you that the Tamil translation of my book of short stories and my autobiography are being released at a meeting of Tamil Putha Nanbargal meet at the tax center on this Tuesday. With that, I will have completed 8 books in 8 years. I'm also privileged to have 2 distinguished authors here with me. Thank you, Kannan and Raman, being part of the team. After spending 45 years in the world of advertising, if I am today being recognized as a writer-author, I owe my deep depth of gratitude to 2 people, S. Muttaya and S.R. Madhu, the veteran journalists who are also my close friends for the last 45 years, who have encouraged me and made an ad man into a writer-author. All this after my retirement. Seeds for my writing career were probably shown in my school and college days in Mumbai, where I lived for 29 long years. As a student, I was a voracious reader, both Tamil and English titles, both fiction and biographies. In fact, I was also writing short stories, plays, etc. in Tamil, not in English. I was a Tamil fanatic those days, active member, student member of Bombay Tamil Sangam. In fact, my plays used to be staged by other college students also. But in enjoying the advertising business, Clarion began advertising as a management training. In the next 45 years, I got so committed to my profession, I stopped writing in Tamil. And the high-posh job did not give me any time for any of my hobbies. However, I continue to read a lot, by this time only English books. Many biographies and autobiographies were my favorite. In fact, I remember the first book I read, autobiography, was by Mahatma Gandhi. And that really hooked me. One day I said, I must write my autobiography. I must qualify myself to be somebody in life, to be able to write an autobiography. Though I am not a great man, but I thought as a simple man, why can't I write about it? And that's the whole inspiration behind my first book, which is my autobiography. I moved to Chennai in 1974, which opened up a whole new world to me. The first 10, 11 years I was busy in Bombay and Delhi. I was there for 3 years. I was totally focused on my job. When I came to Madras, I found I had a lot of time. And it not only provided opportunities for a city boy to become a rural specialist, it also gave me enough time to involve myself in several activities, volunteer organizations. I was in that club, PRSI, name the organization, I was a member. I was very active in all of them, and I had enough time to do all that and still keep my job. That's the beauty of it. It helped me gain varied experiences and meet very interesting people. In fact, over a period of time, my network of friends really exploded. I can proudly say today my friendship, in fact I always say this, between me, my son-in-law, Kavita is here, my elder son-in-law, Aryu, and my Sambandhi, I think we know the whole of Madras. That's the kind of contacts we have developed. So at the age of 65, when I retired as a CMD of Anugrah Madison, an advertising agency which I started in 1986, which was actually the rural division of Madison Communication, the well-known ad agency based in Bombay. I decided to start writing my autobiography. The day I stepped down at the age of 65, next day I started writing my autobiography. No notes, no diary. In fact, I always thought my memory is very poor. But I was amazed. Every time I sat down to write, my life story was coming in front of me like a film. You know, dates, people, names, everything was coming. I wrote down. And I didn't follow any particular formula. I just kept on writing. Originally, I thought I will write a separate chapter on my personal life, professional life. And of course, the last chapter, it says my tryst with God. God has played a very important role in my life. I mentioned that also in my autobiography. But I found that as I went along, my profession and my personal life was really integrated. One was leading to the other, so I thought I'll take it in the flow. Both were combined. After writing about 25 pages and sharing it among friends and relatives, I attended a meeting with Madras Book Club, where Mr. Muttaya was giving his famous lecture, which he loves to give wherever he goes, Biography as History. Mr. Muttaya was talking about a social history, providing insights into life, happenings, values and modes of a city or a community or a profession at a certain point of time. Mr. Muttaya was appealing to all the members in the audience. Many of them are ex-bureaucrats, successful people, or most of them retired people. To put down, record their life stories, not to become famous authors, but for posterity, so that their children and grandchildren would know what the father or grandfather was up to in the old days. Not only the good things they did, all the mischief they did, all that will come out of the book. Plus, anybody who doing research about the history would also be able to get some reference point. But that talk gave me a focus for my writing. In fact, that's where I elaborated my chawl life. I spent almost 26 years of my life in a chawl, what you call Undu Kirtam in Madras, which you can see in Triplicate and other places. I lived that life for 26 years. I elaborately described that, my advertising profession, so many things. I wrote it in lighter vein, in a simple language, straight from the heart. I think that clicked because autobiography, the title Courage My Companion was inspired by Tamil Vanan. You know, Tamil Vanan's Tunive Tunai, it's a title which used to come in Calcutta magazine on the cover page. That became my life philosophy, and I gave the title Courage My Companion as the title of the book. In fact, Srinivas Murthy of Productivity and Quality Publishing. Srinivas Murthy, I'm sure all of you know, the grandson of Satyamurthy and grandson-in-law of R.K. Narayan, very illustrious family. I had the privilege of 4 of my books, 6 books have been published by him. But he agreed to help me. It was a self-financed book. He didn't agree to publish the autobiography of a known person. But he said, I will publish it provided, I'll help you publish it provided you give me a book on autobiography and on rural marketing, which is your area of specialization. So I agreed. So I had a dream launch of my book on 11th November at a 2-in-1 function held in Chennai, organized by Rural Marketing Association of India, at which I was also conferred the Lifetime Achievement Award by the association. Mr. Murali released the book and Mr. Muttaya received the first copy. It was a fantastic, almost 250 people, 100 copies of the book were sold on the day. And more than the sale, later on, I was happy to learn that my autobiography had an impact on a lot of youngsters. There's one person sitting in the audience here, Parveen. She one day walked into my house, thanked me and said, I want to see you. I'm feeling depressed. I read your autobiography. I didn't know it at all. And she said, I want to talk to you. And one thing led to the other, and she joined my Rotary. She's a very active member of Rotary. She's full of beans and life. Thank you, Parveen, for being here. Well, with that, my journey as a writer, post-retirement, took off. Second book, naturally, was a book for Srinivas Murthy. It was rural marketing, titled Don't Flirt with Rural Marketing. Because after 40 years in my business, I found most of the corporates were really talking about rural marketing but not willing to spend money on it. So I wrote, sharing my experience of the subject, Don't Flirt with Rural Marketing. That was received well by the marketing fraternity. In fact, it went for a reprint. And I'm happy to say that though the contents of the book, I think now will be outdated because technology is overtaken. The way you can communicate rural market totally changed now. My third book, immediately after writing the autobiography, based on the response that I got from people, I started writing on anything and everything. This and that, then and now. That became the title of my book. You see, I used to write, in fact, what happened was one of the articles I wrote after completing my Divyadesam, 108 Divyadesams. I wrote saying, Visa to Vaikuntham. I have finished 106 Divyadesams. Now, I think I got the visa. I'm waiting for the Lord to take me to Vaikuntham to see the other 2 places. Hindu published it in the open page in 2011. I got a fantastic response. More than 300 to 400 communications I got, letters and emails and so many things. That gave me the confidence, yes, I am readable material. So I started contributing to various journals, dailies and Madras. And that way, and the recent past, last 2.5 years ago, Adyar Times asked me to write a column, Rajan's Random Reflections. It's supposed to be a fortnightly column, but appears randomly. Sometimes it comes in quick succession, sometimes it comes in once in 3 weeks. My fourth book, titled History of Media and Advertising in Chennai, was based on a talk I gave on the topic at the Madras Week celebration meeting 2 years ago. And the fifth book was a very challenging book, History of 41 Clubs of India, ex-roundtables. I hope all of you know about roundtable like Rotary. I wrote the history of that association. That was my fifth book. Sixth book is this book of short stories. Let me quickly, just 2 minutes, I'll give you the background about this book. Apart from the inspiration that my wife, she herself was a short story writer, ex-wife, she was a late wife. She died 4 years ago. 2 of her books were published before she went away from this world. Rummaging through some old papers a few years ago, I discovered a scrapbook in which I found 2 of my short stories written in Tamil during my college days. I was shocked. I couldn't believe that I wrote those stories because today, after 55 years of that writing, I am not able to write one little postcard in Tamil. I am not able to compose the letters in Tamil. Similarly, I am not able to read loudly in Tamil. I can read, I can write also, but I am not able to do that. So I said, why not try my hand? I've been writing essays and I've written autobiography. Why not try my hand at writing some short stories? Again, as I said, motivation of my wife. I wrote the first story called Marriages Are Made in Heaven. Just circulated among friends. It was received well. Then wrote a couple of more stories and sent to my good friend Kirambur, editor of Kannan and Chalukesi, my good friend is here. He's another mentor I have in the world of literature. They encouraged me. Kirambur gave me a big surprise. One day he said, I think it was May 2014, 2 days before the issue was out. The must surprise. I was shocked to find one of my stories which I had sent him for his comments, not for publication. He had translated it and published it as a story in the Kalaimagan May issue. I was thrilled because Kalaimagan, as you know, is a very prestigious magazine, and that recognizing my writing talent, short story writing, I was thrilled. That Kalaimagan published one more story and Dignity Dialogue published another story. Unfortunately, I find not many English dailies and magazines accept short stories. In the old days, Hindu used to carry short stories, I'm told. But nowadays, nobody carries. So I've been keeping it, blogging it. So I decided to bring it out as a book. I decided to write at least 15 stories so that I could publish a book of my short stories in English. The book in your hands is my maiden effort in writing short stories. Well, some of the stories are based on my own experiences and the experience of my friends and relatives. A few have been inspired by stories that I've heard from other people. I have not followed any particular format, not any themes, though many of the stories deal with contemporary issues. In fact, you know, as a reader myself, I read a lot of books, at least 3 to 4 books a month. And I can tell you, I don't like long descriptions of, somebody will take one wall, they can describe for 3-4 pages. I have never enjoyed reading that, so I have not even written like that. So you will find mine is not a descriptive kind of thing, but all, of course, I'm sure my friends here will comment on that. Let me not comment on my own book. So with the publication of this book, I have covered 5 genres of books. An autobiography, an industry-based book on my experience on rural marketing, a collection of my essays on a variety of topics, an institutional history of 41 clubs of India, and now a book of short stories. The only genre remaining in my long list of, in my target list, is a novel. Hope God gives me enough time in this world to fulfill my dream of writing a novel. In fact, I have already started researching the subject. At 75, in fact, I am celebrating my 75th birthday this month. Happening series of birthdays. My children decided to celebrate on 13th August, though my birthday is on 30th August. Because my grandson was going away to America, the family got together and gave me a birthday party. There will be a series of parties now. Friends, that is the background of a retired old man becoming a writer. I must tell you, I am enjoying it thoroughly. The advantage of writing as a hobby is you can sit at home and write. And thanks to technology, you can connect to the whole world within a matter of 5-10 minutes and start getting the responses. That is important. Feedback is important for a writer, which I'm happy to say. I not only get published, but I also send by email about 1,500, 1,600 people. They like it or not, I send them. But many of them respond. And this way, my life is kept interesting and lively. Thank you very much for giving me patience.
Thank you, Mr. Rajan. Very entertaining account. Now you will also hear from Mr. Kannan shortly, but before we go into that, I have a few questions for you, Mr. Rajan. Like you said, you have written 6 different books: autobiography, non-fiction, your own musings, and then now a delightful collection of short stories. my question to you is, why did you choose to write different genres? And the reason I'm asking you is that most authors tend to pick one or two genres and write repeatedly in that to hone their skills. Right? But your thinking was different. So what was the thinking behind it?
I won't say any particular reason, it just happened. See, autobiography was something which I was always determined to write one day. That was something working in my mind all the time. First opportunity I got, I wrote. Just happened. Encouraged by the response I got, I started writing articles, which was accepted. First, I remember my first article appeared in Youth Touch. With Mutaya as a consigning editor. It appeared, I was very happy. But 12, 14 articles appeared before the magazine itself got closed down. Madras musings carried around. Even today they carry my articles occasionally. So no particular reason. But some point when I start seeing that I'm covering different genres, and I consult my friend, what are the genres available? Why not I have a different kind of goal in my life? Instead of writing about one aspect, let me have one book in each.
Let me talk about your autobiography. In this current day and age of mobile phones and selfies, an autobiography is a literary selfie, isn't it? Now, this cover, there's something interesting about it. I'm sure there's some history behind it. Can you talk about it?
Can you all recognize this cartoon? Who has drawn this? Can we name the cartoonist? Not Kavita, don't mention.
Rajan himself.
R.K. Lakshman.
Isn't it very familiar? Right?
The common man.
Yeah. So it's common man's.
I call my autobiography an uncommon autobiography of a common man, Lakshman's common man. Because this cartoon was presented to me by Lakshman in 1978. I was secretary of the Publication Society of India, Tamil Nadu chapter. And I was close to the family because, his father-in-law come, brother-in-law, S.V. Venkatram. I say Venkatram was my first client in my life in Bombay. Through him I got close to the family and I used my connection to bring him to Madras on a lecture come demonstration too. For 3 days I was in charge of his program. We had a fantastic meeting in Karimara where he demonstrated how he draws cartoons. Very interesting thing. He said every politician in my mind is frozen in the form of some object. You draw a flower vase, couple of strokes, it will become Morarji Desai. Something else you draw, couple of strokes, it will become Indira Gandhi. Amazing. I have all those original cartoons with me. So, in fact, he came home for dinner also at my house. We had a couple of friends. On the last day when I went to see him off at the airport, those days I used to wear safari suits, standard safari suits, man. Until my brother only objected. Look too much of a banyaya, get out of the safari suit. So I had to get back to normal formal wear. Anyway, on that day, very interesting thing happened. When I was seeing him off, he just asked Rajan, just hold on and frame me like this. I was just wondering why he is doing that. Then within 10 days, a cartoon of me, this one original, came by registered post 2 days before my birthday that year. A fantastic gift, I thought. So I treasured it. That's it, the story.
It must have been really wonderful to receive that. Now, talking about your this collection of, it's a collection of 15 stories, delightful short stories, right? You could read it in one go, a couple of hours.
4 hours.
Or, like me, if you want to, cherish each story, you read one in the evening or the next day, so you can do it whichever way you want. Now, what struck me about, I've read about half the story, not all of it yet. What struck me is your characters are very simple people, and you have set them in very everyday kind of situations, right? Is that deliberate?
That's not what I do. To be honest with you, I only write about what I know, what I hear, what I feel. I have not attempted to do something which I'm not comfortable with. And all the stories are based on real life situations. At least 60% are factual, 60% factual, and many characters are real. I have used my imagination only to give a twist here and there, or somewhere beefing up the narrative that way. Otherwise, I don't
know. When I compare your short stories to other authors' short stories, first thing that strikes me is they are really short. And the scenes in them are also very, very short. Half a page, there are some scenes which are just 1/3 of a page. Again, so what's the thinking behind it? The reason I'm asking this, Mr. Rajan, is that it's actually very different from most of the short stories that I've read.
Actually, no particular thinking, it just happened. I didn't do anything deliberate. See, okay, I can answer you this question. I got to read this book by David Davidar. You know, he brought out a collection of short stories of famous authors in India, language authors, whose stories have been translated into English. Big book, I don't know, 40, 50 stories. And I found there was no particular format of the short stories. Short stories, small description, big ones. Some of the stories only description, no conversation. Some of the stories only conversation, no description. I found there is no particular format. And I can also say to some extent I was influenced by also R.K. Narayan's style of writing, very simple, straight from the heart. In fact, all my essays, if you notice, you've been reading my column in Adyar Times, they come straight from the heart. I talk about mundane, day-to-day issues. But I find a lot of people find it relaxed stuff. I get a lot of calls, letters saying, oh my God, I've been thinking about it, you wrote about it. You know, that kind of response. I would say something similar happened when I write the short stories. It's not something deliberate, or I'm not an expert. I can't call myself a veteran. It just happens. Maybe when I write the next set of, I may be different. I don't know.
Okay. So one last question before I turn to Mr. Kannan, and this is about your profession. I want to talk about celebrity endorsement. Right? We find so many companies spending crores and crores on celebrity endorsement, whether it's Shah Rukh Khan or Sachin Tendulkar or anything. Right? As a customer, as a potential buyer, it actually works on the negative side for me. So when I'm going to buy something and that is endorsed by a celebrity, the thought that comes to my mind is that a part of the price I'm paying goes to pay for the celebrity. Had it not been a celebrity endorsed product, would it have been cheaper? Right? In my view, the jury is still out on whether celebrity endorsement works or not. What is your view on it?
This concept, because you're paying a big fee to some celebrity, or because you're spending a lot of money on advertising, the product is expensive, is not true. The fact of the matter is, advertising helps create a demand, it helps create mass production, which helps in creating mass economies, which helps you frankly bring down the cost per product. It doesn't add to the cost. At the same time, about celebrity endorsement, I agree with you that I don't see very often celebrities that are used for products which are not related to the guy at all. Which is not credible. There's a danger if you use a celebrity who will not be using that product, but still you are pushing it. It puts off people. I agree with you. It has to be used carefully. It's a double-edged sword. If you are careful, if the celebrity blends with your product message or product, it works. Otherwise, it doesn't work. And see, compared to the kind of budget they spend, even if you spend 5-10 crores on the celebrity, it doesn't add to the cost of the product. That much I can assure you.
Thank you. Let me turn to you, Mr. Kannan. From the very brief summary that we heard, you are a gentleman who seems to have played different roles, apart from just being an author, a lawyer, a teacher, a translator, a news announcer, a spokesperson for a political party, and an editor. Right? You seem to have won a lot of things. Now, what we heard was very brief. We would very much like to hear a little more about yourself and your books. Well,
Hello authors, Mr. Raman and Mr. Rajan, who share identical initials, but nothing more, and who are much more prolific a writer than I. Those who have taken this holiday evening off to come and listen to us. Ashwin and his Odyssey team, and Mr. Muthaya, who was behind this idea of this event here. I welcome you all and I wish to thank Mr. Muthaya. I was actually born a day after Madras was born. So maybe of the three of us, I might have a better ownership in commemorating Madras Day than the two of you. You might be slightly older, and from all that I heard from Uncle Rajan, because we are family friends, his son-in-law, we go back a long way, his son-in-law Aryu Srinivas and I go back for about 30 years to Boston. So my ownership, my proprietary right towards the Madras Week is higher than yours. I was born here, I was raised here, I lived half my lifetime here. All my studies up to law school was done here. And after law school I went overseas like many do nowadays. It's become a very simple thing. But then it wasn't that simple 30 years ago. And it wasn't that simple for somebody to go over and study law. And people said, but isn't our laws different from their laws? But I was studying international law. And that's simply a concept. There is nothing like international law. You know, because since he's a crime thriller, let me tell you, there is Russia just walks in and then takes Crimea. It's a crime. Yeah? Crimea. Where is international law? International law is simply watching. We've passed several resolutions, the United Nations, I mean. And there are, this was the latest that I could mention. But there are other instances of this nebulous international law that I went to study. And then after that, I studied international relations. That's even more nebulous. That's like an ambassadorial stint. One of my friends who's I would not mention his name, he had 2 ambassadorial stints and finished 12 books, all published by Penguin. So that is what ambassadors do. It's called constructive inaction. And India is very capable of such things. But I'm supposed to talk about myself, not about diplomacy, and especially India's diplomacy. So, I was born in the north of Madras in Washermanpet. 15 years, 49, so 13 years after the Dravida Munnetra Kazhagam was born, in my neighborhood. I grew up with the Dravidian movement. I grew up with the DMK. That was the most vibrant, the most energetic, the purest phase of the Dravidian movement, not the movement that you see today. It was a time of simple people. It was a time of people who had no homes, who didn't own universities, deemed or doomed or otherwise, who did not own distilleries. It was a nascent, it was as pure as a baby. I grew up with that movement. And I'm here before you, I think. I was born into a small trading family, and for me to look upon education as a tool for social mobility, that is a gift of this movement, for which I need to say thanks, because we have shunned education. We have pursued Lakshmi, not Saraswati, as much as we would have wanted to. So today, sure that if you can get both Lakshmi and Saraswati, great. If you want, you can add Parvati as well. But if you can only choose one, then the choices are very limited. To use your title, it's a difficult choice, Uncle Rajan, to make. Would you choose Lakshmi or Saraswati? So the families that we come from usually chose Lakshmi. For us to be able to have also chosen, have broken away with tradition, and to have done this, that is the gift of this movement, which, of course, after 100 years, has degenerated like every other movement. There's no question about it. And I tell you, you cannot judge Gandhi by his disciples. You should not. At least he had a few noble ones. You should not judge E.V. Ramasamy Periyar by his disciples. And certainly Anna by his disciples. You should judge them on their own merits. Only a tree should be judged by the fruits that it bears, not leaders, not religious seers, because then they will disappoint us. So, with that introduction, what can I say about myself? As I said, I grew up with the DMK. My family, my granddad was a local patron of the DMK. I had seen Perasari Ranbaradan come into our homes. I'm told that my paternal grandfather, we are originally from Arupukotte, that E.V. Ramasamy Periyar had been a guest in our household. I do not know, I cannot verify. The problem with the Tamils is that we don't record. We never record. And that way, what Uncle Rajan has done is very good. Everybody should write his or her own autobiography, because maybe the fifth generation might be interested. I know that your current grandchildren are not so much interested, but maybe there is hope for us, Uncle. So, Tamils, unlike the Chinese, the Indians did not record. Look at the Tamil tradition. With the third generation, you cannot go any further. That's why the grandson is called Peran, because he will bear the name of the grandfather. And Perpi, she will bear the name of the grandmother. Since those names are so conservative and orthodox, nowadays nobody takes on their grandfather's name or their grandmother's name. So we cannot go back into history to find out where you're from. And in the Tamil tradition, except for certain communities, we do not have the idea of a family name, because the gift of this movement is we have done away with caste names mostly. It's alarmingly returning. Unlike Kerala, Andhra, Karnataka, or in central India, there are millions of Reddis, millions of Yadavs. Are they all related? It's absurd. So, we did away with that. But we cannot go back. I don't know who my great-grandfather was. So we have a problem. So, with all this, when I came back, I should thank Mr. Ram, in the UN we write a lot. We also talk a lot. That explains why we don't do much. So, the UN was founded for one reason. The Charter says it very clearly. To avoid a third world war. We've succeeded. There's no third world war, let me assure you. There have been several other wars. We do some good work. Our agencies, funds and programs do a lot of good work. Every year we feed about 50 million refugees. There is the World Food Program. We have the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. We have other agencies and funds and programs. We have eradicated polio. We've done a lot of good things. The agencies, funds and programs have done those things. But the UN is made up of its member states. So, if the board of directors do not gel and work together, it's not the company's fault. You've been reading about a particular company today, yesterday, day before. The UN is no different. Its board of directors are its member states. Some of them are very powerful. The Security Council is the board. And what it decides is what the UN can do. So this is why we have no resolution to certain conflicts, like Kashmir, for instance, or the Middle East, for instance, or other conflicts. So coming back, with the kind of profile that I had, somebody who could traverse both the Tamil and the English world with ease, I thought must record the history of this movement in a way that people who are not familiar with this movement, the way that I am familiar with it, should be able to, and people who cannot follow Tamil should be able to follow this. Mr. Ram gave me an opening because I write in the UN Extra. I left the UN the first time to see if I could be part of Tamil Nadu's political scene in '95. And '95 was when I was working in the former Yugoslavia then. That was when the Croats overran the Serb-held rebel lands and then took over the whole of Croatia. Mr. Ram was Frontline's editor there. I did a piece and then that's how I started writing. And then he had seen, when he was a student at Columbia, he had seen another. We had been so taken with this man, who was chief minister then, at G. Parthasarathy's place, I think. So taken with him that when I approached him, he agreed to, the Hindu doesn't publish articles to commemorate birthdays of leaders. So it was an exception. 3 years in a row I wrote about Anna on his birthday, 15th of September. And after that the idea for the book happened, then Anna happened, and then its reprint happened this year after 7 years. The natural corollary of Anna would be Anna's two major, most popular disciples, if you may, or his followers. Penguin approached me to write about MGR. I was a little diffident. I had run to see MGR. MGR was a man who looked to me like a celestial. I had seen him about 3 or 4 times. Once when I was at school, I had run to see this man canvassing in an open-top van. He was the one who introduced this in the lectionary. He was in that 4 o'clock sun. He was shining like gold. I was in my 8th or 9th grade. I was not even a sheep because most of his followers are women folk of my age. I just fell for this man. And then I saw him after he had returned from his treatment from the US with a borrowed kidney. He was still, and I saw him very, very closely, 2-3 feet away. His shine hadn't gone. This was a man, I mean, I'm an agnostic. This was a man, he was a man who was endowed with this natural gift. He might have had a bald pate, but he had a complexion that women envied. He had looks that everybody, wanted to. As Anna said, his face could fetch, just his face could fetch 30,000 votes. And that's what happened. So, if Anna had brought the story of the movement up to 1969, his death, MGR continues the story up to 1987. So you might want to know, so will the story continue further? I think it should. A book on the Dravidian movement in its centenary year will be very appropriate with its achievements, flaws, warts, and all. Every movement will go through after some time will face decadence. That is what is happening with this movement as well. On that note, I would stop here and go back and resume my seat, but we can discuss anything, and it's a pleasure and an honor to share this forum with Uncle Rajan and Mr. Raman. Thank you very much.
Mr. Kannan, since your forte is politics and the Dravidian movement, a couple of questions, more anchored in current day politics than anything else. you talked at length about the Dravidian movement. How do you view the current array of Dravidian politics, Dravidian parties? Is there anything that separates them apart from the personalities?
No.
Very good. Taking that same concept afield to, let's say, India, and if you ask the same question of political parties, national political parties, one is faced with the same question of, is there any significant ideological differences between them? If you look at some of the communists, they seem to lead lifestyles very similar to people who are in other parties as well. So, is there anything between to choose from?
No, let me go back to the first question. I think there are subtle differences amongst and between the Dravidian parties. I would not, because I happen to be the spokesperson for the DFK, one of the spokespersons. We have 13. Parties have several spokespersons. Not because of that. I think despite electoral politics and power and the pursuit of power, I think we probably are more faithful to the original moorings of the movement than, I'm talking about, of the two major Dravidian parties. So, that having been said, going to your second question, I think there are, I mean, you can divide political parties into, you can just put them into three blocks. Leftists, who are mostly left out, except in one or two states. And the leftists in Tamil Nadu are wonderful people. I have great respect for them. They are simple. They don't lead the lifestyles that you mentioned. This could possibly be the case in West Bengal and Kerala, where power had probably corrupted them. Nalla Karnu is a living Gandhian. And you have the rightists. They're not right, just on the right side. Then you have the centrists. People like me, if you may. The good and the dangerous thing about the leftists and the rightists are on the ascent now, as we speak, is that they work very methodically, they're very organized, very determined, they know what they want, they have a time frame, they have all the time, they're not in a hurry. Except, I think, the recent events in Tamil Nadu shows that some rightists are in a huge hurry. You know, they've become gurus for the different murtis of the ADMK factions. That having been said, then you have the centrists. So yes, there isn't, the clashes between the left and the centrists can work together. And there have been moments when even all the three have come together. There have been a time when the BJP government was supported, the Vajpayee government was supported from the outside by both the leftists and the centrists. So all this has happened in India. I think what is, to come to your point, ideological differences are not the issue in India anymore. What is it? There's a major, much more of a serious issue at stake here. Probity in public life, cleanliness, clean governance, simple living, not amassing wealth, leading by example. This in itself has become a casualty 70 years after India's independence. We don't have to discuss ideology, because it is not that India's foreign policy or its ideological direction will that greatly change if X comes to power as opposed to Y.
So continuing with what you just said, for many of us who look at it from the outside, politics is to a large extent synonymous with corruption. There are exceptions, of course, right? So my question to you is this: how difficult is it for a person who wants to be clean, who wants to make a difference, And if this person enters politics, how difficult or easy is it for the person to continue along the path he charted out when the rest of the system, some may say, is quite wrong, and the temptations are quite severe?
It's a very good question. I do want to answer it on a more universal level as well as at a personal level. I think the answer is it's extremely difficult. It's well nigh impossible. I think tomorrow if I were to be somewhere in a position of authority, in office, I think I can only assure you that I can be clean, which means that I will not accept anything, but that doesn't mean I would not give anything. So this cleanliness that you talk about has become a very difficult, next to impossible thing. In all developing countries we have this problem. We have this problem even in places like Japan. But the problem seems to be very acute here, especially in the last 20, 30 years, because what has happened, and I would blame the electorate for this, because firstly the electorate is willing to be sold, to be bought. Secondly, there is so much apathy and indifference amongst the public. They've given up. So it's a free-for-all. And then they also, today, values have become so different that it doesn't matter how you make it, so long as you make it. So you can be Krishna, the end justifies the means. So you have people who have made the money and fame and name in questionable ways, walking as VIPs, if not VVIPs, in India.
Taking corruption a little further, the politics-business nexus seems to be here to stay. I at least believe that. I use a lot of that in my plots, in my curriculum. So, where is this heading? And and this is something which is not just Tamil Nadu or India, it is global. It's actually more global than elsewhere. So where do you see this nexus going?
I think it will get worse before it can get any better. That's my feeling. And I don't know if you and I will live to see that phase. I think the solution or the remedy is for younger people to show some interest in public life, to care, to really go and care and vote, and not leave this country's fate and their own into the hands of a select few who show up to vote, and for you know how elections are won, and then we lead. Tamil Nadu leads also in this. So I don't have much hope for the near term, the mid-term, but I think things will change.
Okay, how elections are won. Now, the welfare politics. Is it right to say that Tamil Nadu was one of the first states to embrace it in a major manner? Perhaps started with free veshtis and free saris, went on to mixers, grinders, laptops, two-wheelers, etc., etc. This is a movement which seems to have been taken up by some others in the country as well. The ruling party in Delhi slashed the power prices of the power bills by half, right? Now, is this consistent at all with the original founders of the Dravidian or any other national parties?
I think it's a good question. You would, I don't know if you lived here, we came to power promising Oru Padi, Moondru Padi Satyam, Oru Padi Nichayam. I don't know if it is Satyam. I think we said, so instead of Satyam, we said something else. Mondupadi and then Vorupadi. This was in 1967 when we had a rice crisis. Okay. Because
Moondrupadi Lakshya.
Moondrupadi Lakshya, correct. Thank you. Moondrupadi Lakshya, Vorupadi Nichayam. And of course, we did one measure. We provided one measure in Madras and in Coimbatore. And we had come to power just then, and we didn't have the backing of the bureaucracy at all. In fact, they wanted to see us off. So it was a Herculean task. We didn't have the monies, so we gave it up. Welfare politics is part of the Dravidian movement. You might be surprised, and the people here will be surprised to know that the free meal scheme was introduced by the Justice Party in a school in 1,000 Lights as early as the 1920s. It was free breakfast. It cost about 8,000 rupees a year. The British then didn't want to foot the bill. So after 3 or 4 years, we ended the program. It was actually not the brain child of the Dravidian movement. There was an Adyar in Madurai who was doing this before. In his private capacity, we copied it. And then it was copied in a major way by Kamaraj. That is also welfare politics. Then he became Kalvikar from the Kamarajar. We built a lot of schools, and many of these children were able to go to schools. I don't know if they went to study, but they went for this meal. And this was scaled several times by NGR, that 67 lakh children would go to school. It was a feat. From there, the Veshtis and saris were not the first free things that were given away. There was Ilavasa Palpodi. There was Ilavasa Serapil. This is what MGR, after the success of the nutritious Dundee scheme, the man was on a high. So we had footwear, we had this, we had that. And the free Veshti Sari scheme happened because Gopal Gandhi was then secretary to government here. And there was, the stocks had accumulated. Nobody was buying handloom. And so this had to be sold, and in the proposal to give it away free, was mooted, and that started. We've gone the other end. DMK gave free television. It was a huge popular move, and we were blamed for it. I think this will have to stop, whether the politicians stop or not. The fact that there is no money will probably end this at some point.
Okay, switching away, one last question for you. You're an Indian living in Iraq. So Iraq and India, two very old civilizations. Chennai and Basra, historical towns, right? There must be similarities, there would be differences. Can you draw a quick comparison between the two for us?
Quick is the operative word. Basra is a port city, so is Madras. Basra can go as high as 56 degrees, whether you believe it or not. But it is not that humid. Madras is humid. Basra has it produces about 500,000 barrels or more, I forget now. Of the 3 barrels it produces, India buys 1 barrel every day. We buy oil from Iraq to the tune of $17 billion a year. Iraq is the 3rd largest supplier of oil. Between Madras and Basra, you can't do much with civilizations and history. Those are for your, when you're sitting on your laurels and playing with your grandchildren, you can talk about all that. I think with all the money and with all the oil, Basra is a terribly deprived city. And here Madras, with all its almost close to 400 years of history, continues to be found, and its infrastructure is degrading. So my sympathies to both Basra and Madras.
Thank you very much. Now, Odyssey asked me to talk about my books, so let me just take a couple of quick minutes to do that. I basically write crime fiction. My books are published by Hachette. Hachette likes to call them corporate thrillers because they are basically crime thrillers set in corporate India. So, my books essentially have two core elements. Like any other crime novel, it has murders, it has murderers, it has motives, it has a detective trying to find out what happened. So that's one part. The second core element is what probably makes my books a little unique. That is white collar crime. So what I try to do is, with the industry that I am familiar with because of my corporate background, banking, stock exchanges, e-commerce, etc., etc., I try and design white-collar crime which is as close to reality as possible. If the banker reads my first book, Fraudster, which is set in banks, I feel that the person should relate to it. If a stockbroker reads my second book, it's about insider trading and stock exchange fraud, they should relate. So I try and make it as realistic as possible. So my arrangement with Hachette is that I would write 4 books, 4 corporate thrillers. The first is set in banking, the second in the stock market, the third is in an e-commerce firm, like it's a fictitious e-commerce firm like Snapdeal or Flipkart. What happens in that is that just what is happening in Snapdeal now, this e-commerce firm starts running out of money. They are burning money like anything. So they run out of money and they are about to close a new round of funding. And what happens is that from the investors' organization, somebody goes missing and the funding round stops. As if that was not enough, corporate espionage strikes them. They find bugs, listening devices in their offices, and there is a huge data theft. One thing leads to another, and then murder happens and it goes on. The first book, Fraudster, starts with a bank chairman falling from his 18th floor in South Bombay to his death. But the interesting thing there is, when he falls, there is nobody in his house. He's alone. He's a widower. He's alone. The house is locked, and the key to the house is in his pocket. So it's a kind of a closed room mystery as well. So that's what I try to do, a combination of a whodunit and a corporate crime. And like I said, I try and do it in different industries. The fourth one is set in media, because the current thing that is rather popular is about paid news. So the fourth book is with the publisher and will come out sometime next year. Now with these 4 books done, I want to get on to something else in crime fiction. And what I plan to do is to write a personal crime fiction, like Agatha Christie or a John Dixon Carr or one of those, right? And what I also wanted to do was to set it in Tamil Nadu. So my 5th book, I've just started writing the first couple of pages, starts in Chennai. It starts in Woodlands restaurant, New Woodlands in Radhakrishnan Sare. And then the rest of it is going to take place in Tamil Nadu. So that's something which I want to do. Now, so this is a brief about my books. There is more information on my website, www.rvraman.com. So if you go there, there are also a couple of short stories which are made available for free downloads. So that's a brief thing about me. I also write fantasy fiction, but I don't think there will be too many fans of fantasy writing here. Usually they tend to be the younger folk, right? I write that in a different name, and mine is classical fantasy fiction like Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones. Unfortunately, Indian publishers do not want to publish fantasy unless it is about Indian mythology. A couple of them asked me to retrofit my stories into Indian mythology. I declined because I thought it would kill the story. So that is a brief about myself. I have some more questions, but I think I will pass that and leave time for both of you and... Sure.
When did you actually start writing? What age?
When did I start writing? I think around when I was about 47, 48, I started writing the fantasy. When my boys were still in school, and they are great fans of things like Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. And these are huge franchises, as you know, extremely popular franchises. And so the question my sons asked me is, can we create a world of our own? So I said, let's take a shot. I had never written before. We took a shot, and that's how it started. My first book, The Fraudster, was published in 2014, right? And this is 16, there was one, 17, there is one, and then the next one.
You're a very popular author. My question is equally embarrassing like Uncle Rajan's question. I think he wanted to find out your age when he said, when did you start writing? But let me assure you, that's not my intent now. Can one make a living out of writing and out of English writing?
The short answer is no. Because except for perhaps half a dozen writers, you can count probably on one hand, there aren't enough English writers in India who can make two ends meet using just writing. So what I tell people is that you do it as a hobby, as a part-time thing, otherwise it's a complete mercy. I think we are done, so shall we throw it open?
Yeah. Any questions? You can just raise your hand, we'll get back to you.
I'd like to ask you something. You were just mentioning that you cannot make...
My name is Satya. I'm a schoolmate of your spouse. Okay. And also RV Rajan is a Canadian and I'm a Canadian, so that's how I landed up here. I've had a couple of questions to him too, but I think the time constraint later.
No, that's not time.
This I wanted to ask you is, you said you cannot make ends meet. Is it because the public's level of reading capacity has gone down, or do you think that, you know, like even art, sometimes they say you cannot make ends meet, but at least art, there's a stream of people, there are art lovers or art collectors or something, but they make the art industry survive. So like that, don't you have a literacy group or something that will kind of help you flourish? Or is it that we don't have enough reading capabilities?
I think the short answer is that there aren't enough readers in India. If you look at least the English writing. If you compare India and let's say the UK, right? You travel anywhere in the UK, go in a bus, go in a tube, you find so many people reading, right? In India, it is not so. In India, a book that sells 3,000 copies or even 4,000 copies is a bestseller. Whereas in the US, it's 50,000. So the short answer to your question is there aren't enough people who buy. So even bestsellers, unless you're a Chetan Babu who sells in lakhs, right? You could take a Ravi Subramanian who probably sells in tens of thousands. The income he probably gets out of this is a fraction of what he gets out of his day job. So the answer is there just isn't enough demand. And the second thing is, look at the prices of books. Most books, my first book was 250 rupees, my third book was 399, and 399 is a price point where many people don't buy. But we look at it overseas, it's at least £7, £10. So the amount of royalty you get is very, very significant.
But publishers seem to be well flourishing. I mean, even here, some of the publishing groups are well. Like here also, I see they make, enough profits to
Yes, I do make, but again, if you step back and compare publishing with, let's say, banking or manufacturing, you will find that the amount of profit they make is a fraction. That's why that leads to another problem. Because you are unable to pay publishers and editors well, there is a huge paucity of good editors in India. I'm sure Mr. Kannan will also endorse the same.
My name is Surya. I'm an academic. The question is directed to Kannan. At the fag end of his life, Gandhiji said, "Then my life is my message." Is there any leader in Tamil Nadu, leave aside people like Nalakan, who can proudly say that my life is in message. They are all dead.
Still their life should be a message.
All eligible men are either married or dead. So this is what we tell our women folk. But I think the answer is pretty evident. But as I said earlier, quite a few of those are with the leftist movement. There are also such people in the Dravidian movement, but these people are few and far between, and you and I don't know them. You and I perhaps know them, not the public. So the way we judge, our yardsticks have changed. We judge people not by their values that much, as much as we judge them today by their success. There's a film star who tweets, and there are tens of thousands of people who follow the tweet. There are others who are anxiously waiting a film star to enter the public arena. Where are we heading? So the answer is no.
My question is to Mr. Raman. While reading one of your books, I felt a lot of similarity with Arthur Haley. There he went into great detail about the industry he was talking about. The book was as much about the industry as about the subject or the other content. Was he an influence? Was he a reference point for you, or did you follow him actively?
Not consciously, but several readers have said exactly the same. If you look at Arthur Haley, it's airport, hotel, he takes different industries. I don't think I did it consciously, but my corporate background, I've been an advisor to companies for about 30 years. So I've looked at many different industries. And quite honestly, there are not too many people who get that opportunity to do that, right? So I had that opportunity, and instead of doing something like John Grisham, who did all legal thrillers, I wanted to set it differently. So it was not a conscious influence, it might have been a subconscious influence. You had some questions about that.
Mr. Kannan, about politics, when you're talking about politics in India or even globally, do you think the trend changed because people from the movie industry filtered into politics? Do you think there's some relationship to this kind of total change and the greed and everything that came into it?
Not at all, not at all. And this thing about films has happened only in a few places. In the Philippines, here in Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Ronald Reagan, but Reagan was not an extremely popular star. It was just a coincidence that he happened to be a star. So I would not agree with you. This is not the reason. And besides, some of these people like Clint Eastwood used to be a mayor of a town, and Sylvester Stallone was the governor of California. So I think they've done very well, and it has nothing to do with, and except in Tamil Nadu you don't, and Andhra Pradesh with NTR it was over. And even Andhra Pradesh, NTR himself had an extremely difficult ending, as you know. So this is a phenomenon that I would think was limited to Tamil Nadu. I don't think...
We are the worst affected.
No, I don't think cinema had spoiled public life in Tamil Nadu or elsewhere, to answer your question. I think this is a general debasement that is happening in most places. And I think if it might console you, let me assure you that the end of superstars becoming whatever, I think is happening. The beginning of the end.
That was going to be my next question, whether it is good for politics, for the people. Movie people keep shifting into politics all the time. Is that the only option we have? It looks like most of the time.
No.
Why couldn't an army person or anybody who's been serving the
army person should not
as a soldier who's given his life, or like sometimes they call a VIP a movie a hero or a heroine is called, but never a person who's given his life for sacrificed so much for the country is called as a VIP for an event. Very rarely, and even if they do, it's not really very. Even the TV people don't cover that. I mean, it's it's not much of publicity. That's a sad state of affairs. So I think we also are only going behind glamour. And
I just wanted to make a couple of comments very quickly. We have sent Mr. Sachin Tendulkar to the Rajya Sabha. He doesn't even show up. So let's not focus on film stars. Film stars are regular people like you and I. If there is a vacuum, if there is a need, if they can serve, let anybody come to serve. There's nothing holding them back. I think there is. If you really want to serve, please do come. And in fact, film stars who have made a career, film stars who have a lot of money, who have no need to make money, should step in. India's first term was a good, relatively clean term. But the system is so mangled that the man couldn't survive. Some superstars want to change the system. I wish them luck. Yes, sir.
I would like to first thank you for sharing your thoughts this evening. So this is an open question, and I would like to direct it to all three of you, and whoever wishes to answer can do so. Since you are all eminent authors and you are all well published, I wonder if you think about the role privilege plays in being a successful publishing, an author in English, especially today. I mean, this is kind of a follow-up to what was asked a little earlier, and I think Kannan alluded to it in his talk a little bit somewhere, but I wonder if you would have any thoughts on the role privilege plays in being a successful author in the English language in India. Thank you.
Okay, I can speak for myself. Yes, certainly I'm privileged. There are no two things about it at all. And I think a lot of the privilege came from where the family in which I happened to be born. I don't think that, and subsequently, more of the privilege came from my corporate career of 30 years, where obviously I made a reasonable amount of money, and that is why I could afford to move away from full-time work and do things like teaching and writing. Right? So the privilege that I have probably gleaned as a writer, I think is reasonably insignificant. But am I privileged? Absolutely. And I don't know whether we have the time, but when I look back, along with the privilege, I think there's also a certain diffidence and cowardice which drives me to write. Right? So at a personal level, you look at inequity, you look at corruption, unfairness everywhere you go. In the political scene, in the corporate scene, you go to a government office. I didn't have the courage to become an activist, right? And for me, my children growing up, my family being safe was more important than being an activist. So the only outlet I had was to write fiction, in which I try and take a position wherein the good triumphs over evil. That's my personal view. Anything more to add?
So one quick yes or no question to all three of you. If you're invited to politics, would you be joining?
No, I'm clear, no.
Yes, that is my
because, see, the same mistake he's doing. We are thinking that politics is a big mangled thing, and none of us venture into it. So I guess that's why it's remaining mangled all the way.
The UN is my vocation. Public life is my calling. I quit the UN once to see if I could run for parliament here. That did not happen. I think my wife prayed to all the 330 million Hindu deities very fervently. So I did get a few other things, but I turned them down because I certainly want to go to Delhi. This is what I intend to do. I can work with the UN for another 10 years. I can rise up the ladder in the UN, but then I will be older than I am today. And I think, so at some point I want to cut loose of the UN. My idea is to do it for the next parliamentary elections. That I can do from my end. Whether anybody would take me is another question. So it's not that if the three of us decide we can just go there. You see, let me, I'll tell you, Ian Session, when he was the
Election.
Chief Election Commissioner. We had only one election commissioner then. He's a celebrity. We owe it to him for all the many electoral changes and reforms that we have today. We owe it to him. When he finished, there were two parties, I would not name them, that he wanted a ticket from. They promised him. They left him high and dry. So you have to be very careful with public life. It's not that you can choose. And
I'm saying no to politics because politics is not the only arena where there is politics, if you know what I mean. Corporate world is full of politics. And the higher I rose, the more I had to deal with it. Politics within the organization, politics across the organization's boundaries. I find myself very difficult to deal with politics of whatever nature. That's one of the reasons why I stepped away from active, full-time executive roles and started doing that thing. But I can't deal with it. I think this gentleman had a...
Yes, I had a question.
Why don't we Indian kids look at our own way of thinking and we look only at film stars or cricket stars? Why can't we think for ourselves? When a new person comes, we just treat them like God. Why don't we try to analyze, think for ourselves? Why don't we have that self-esteem to do that? So that we can form our own opinions and that could come into even public life. Politics also. And be opinionated towards stars.
I don't agree with you. I think there is no question of
You're not audible.
yeah.
Just repeat the question again.
Like, suppose any star comes into politics, whether it's in sport or any field, a film star, people get so hyped and they want only them to come and they treat them like God. They don't see that, have the confidence of having success regardless of anything, being yourself. They can't think for themselves. Why don't they think and make a judgment who's best for them rather than seeing them as stars?
Actually, it's a very emotional issue. Today, if you look at Rajinikanth's fans, you'll be amazed. So many educated people treat him like God. Again, I have my daughter's permission to say my own elder son-in-law. He doesn't miss the first day, first show of Rajinikanth ever. And not that you see the film 10 times. What do you say about that? It's an emotional issue. You can't say don't do it. There's no
But when you think logically it should be best for governance in countries, star is different from what the person is capable at a political level.
Correct. I agree with you, but that doesn't happen in real life.
I don't have an answer to your question because I have exactly the same question. But having said that, I think I have seen a fair number of kids who are not like that, right? There are a number of kids, I don't want to name them, they are not fans of Virat Kohli, they are not fans of Shah Rukh Khan, their heroes in life are people like Einstein, right? There are kids like that, but they are just not visible because of the noise that we see all around. They are just, and many of them say, okay, I want to live life the way I want to live, people want to live it the way they want to live, so they don't come forth.
Is it so we are lacking gutsy intellectuals? They are really more like what we call in language cowardice. We want pushy people.
You can say that.
My own view is that I think the way you treat yourself and the way you look at the world is one thing. Going out and communicating and being a kind of an activist, in quotes, is crossing a line. Now, for you to cross that line, there are costs. There are very significant personal costs, which I think many of these kids are not. I am one of 1.34 billion. Do I really want to do that, or do I pursue my own goals in life? So it's a trade-off.
Playing it safe, that's a natural, normal tendency. That's been my attitude.
So you won't come into politics?
Absolutely no way. Sometimes even in the organizations where I worked, if I find this politics, I stay out, like Rotary. And I got out of political activities 30 years ago because I found that too much of politics. I don't deal with politics. Because we are here to serve. I like to do projects. I enjoy doing that. And I'm happy with what I'm doing. I'm not doing politics.
We'll just take this last question.
Introduce yourself.
My name is Alamu. I have an open question to all of the authors. Coming back to writing, you know, in this current phase of technology and everything, what I hear most about is when you go about your writing, you get distracted by technology. So how do you inspire yourself to write every day? Like, I think because you published authors, what motivates you, or how do you sit to write something to complete it?
It's all a question of discipline. I get up every day in the morning at 4 o'clock. The Brahma Muhurtam time between 4:30 and 6 is the time at my best to write. Rest of the day I find I am not able to complete. In fact, that is why when I'm going to start a novel, I told my children, every month I'll vanish for 10-15 days. I don't know where I'll go and stay. I won't even tell you guys so that you don't disturb me. So I live in the world of the characters that I'm going to write about. It's all a question of discipline. I find everything in life, it's a question of habit and discipline. You can follow it. You know, every day, not necessarily I write every day. But I'm there, either improving on what I have done earlier or writing something fresh. Something happens. The discipline must be there.
I am exactly the opposite. Right? I have no discipline in writing, and the reason is this: I work enough. I have been constrained by time and money enough. I am doing this as a hobby. I am doing it for enjoying. It's just like listening to music. When I feel like writing, I write. There are sometimes I'm up till 4 a.m., 5 a.m. just writing. Sometimes there are weeks I don't write. So, to answer to your question is, I don't need to motivate myself because I think I'm doing something that I enjoy. It's an outlet for me. It's a hobby for me. So that's how.
I'm somewhere in between the two. But what I've been told is by a friend that you write about 300 words every day. And it adds up to about 9,000 words in a month, whether you believe it or not. And then in a year, your book is done, because most books are about 100,000 words, or 100 plus thousand, 80,000, 125,000, and so on and so forth. I don't have that rigor or discipline. Sometimes I do. Most of the times I'm like Mr. Raman. But unlike him, it's not for enjoyment that I write. I write because, not only because I enjoy it, because it's a huge pain. It's after labor, because men won't know anything about labor. I can assure you that writing is as difficult as that. And bringing out a book is almost close to delicate. So I'm somewhere in between. Anybody who would like to write, anybody can write. 90% it's perspiration and 10% inspiration. And discipline would really help to meet deadlines. But that explains how in about 4 years, not even 4 years, 3 years, although he says he has no discipline and he writes in spurts, he's come out with 4 books. And of course, Uncle has produced 1 book a year for the last 8 years. Kudos.
So it's about time. We would like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Raman, Mr. Rajan and Mr. Kannan for being here and show this wonderful evening. We would also like to thank you for making this event successful. I hope you have enjoyed the same as we have done hosting it. Thank you very much. Author titles are available here. Anybody interested can buy them and take autograph from the authors themselves. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening. Thank you.
Thank you.